autumn 2001 year. The rescue base registers the individual route of 26-year-old architect Olivia Clark. The protocol of the survey of colleagues proves the subject planned solitude after the completion of a difficult work project. The approved direction of movement is the pass trail. A surveillance camera at the entrance point recorded Clark at 7:45 in the morning. Equipment is complete. Official commitment in the registration journal to arrive at the final point in 48 hours. The waiting control period has been fully exhausted. The report of the duty officer of the base states that Clark did not appear at the appointed time. There is no contact with the subject. Attempts to automatically connect to the mobile terminal result in a refusal. Fixing the digital billing shows coordinates near the foot of the ridge, after which the signal completely disappears due to the screening of radio waves by the massive rocky terrain. The county sheriff declares a state of emergency. The girl's father, Thomas, arrives at the headquarters. Official protocols record his extreme psychophysiological state. The man's fingers tremble uncontrollably while signing the missing person report. He becomes short of breath, and his gaze freezes on one point on the topographic map. Thomas, having the status of an experienced mountaineer with a 20-year track record of successful ascents, insists on launching the power phase of the operation. A rescue mission is launched during a sharp deterioration of the atmospheric front. Freezes cover the granite walls with a layer of ice. 4 ground rescue teams, supported by 3 helicopters with thermal imaging systems, begin a thorough sweep of the area along the pass trail. Operational reports note: every square meter of rocky crevices has been inspected twice. Hurricane force winds and avalanche danger force the complete cancellation of the initial search sectors. 7 days of continuous on-site operations pass. Polling of registered climbers returns the same answer. No signs of outsiders or biological signs have been detected. The result of the search racing is 0. There are no footprints or equipment elements on the snow. The ice has completely destroyed the hooks. The sheriff makes the decision to roll up the active phase of the operation. The case is sent to the Archive of Unsolved Disappearances. Thomas's father has a laryngeal spasm. He completely loses the ability to swallow air. The facial muscles stiffen, and a sticky cold sweat appears on his forehead. The vector of the investigation changes after a technical audit of the computer logs of the database. The server check transcript indicates that 5 minutes before departure, an unknown user through an encrypted remote terminal made forced changes to Clark's Navigator digital map, redirecting the automatic transmitter to a closed sector of the mountain fault, where there was no concrete contact, and where 3 hours earlier, the activation of an alien satellite beacon was recorded. Olivia Clark's off-road vehicle leaves the nature reserve's parking lot on a tow truck 24 months after her disappearance. The year 2003 brings the case an official status of hopeless. The press completely loses interest in the incident, erasing the architect's name from the news feeds. State funding for search activities is canceled by a decision of the district council. The case files are sent to the sheriff's archive of closed investigations. Thomas Clark refuses to sign the procedural documents, recognizing his daughter as legally dead. The video recording cameras in the prosecutor's office record his physiological breakdown while familiarizing himself with the ruling. The man's fingers grip the edge of the table with such force that the nail plates instantly turn white. Acute shortness of breath occurs. The skin is covered with sticky cold sweat, and the frozen glassy gaze is fixed on the form. His jaw muscles petrify, completely blocking the possibility of uttering at least a word of justification. The father single-handedly unfolds an autonomous operation on the ground. Using his personal professional equipment, Thomas methodically bypasses abandoned hunting shelters, vertical rock crevices, and deep canyons. His route logs, recorded by a satellite tracker, show daily 30-kilometer sweeps of varied terrain within a 20-mile radius of the pass trail. The man works at the edge of physical exhaustion, ignoring official ranger prohibitions on entering the avalanche sectors of the reserve. To enhance investigative action, Thomas engages the financial assets of the family trust. The man hires a private line investigator, former federal profiler Marcus Wayne. The contract protocol records the transfer to Marcus of copies of all server logs of the rescue database for the year 2001 and the full array of Olivia's bank transactions for 48 hours before going to the mountains. Wayne begins a step-by-step audit of the actions of the official teams. According to the detective's final technical report, the initial rescue mission contained critical navigational errors. Audio recordings of Wayne's working interviews with local hunters documented testimony about the presence of numerous unmarked cavities and abandoned mine workings in the closed sector of the ridge, which the ground teams in 2001 did not survey at all due to the threat of sudden rockfalls. Olivia's bank card monitoring journal recorded the purchase of an additional satellite memory block at a Boulder equipment store, but law enforcement did not find the device inside the car. The final report of the private investigator completely destroys the version of a simple accident. Marcus Wayne presents two uncompromising versions. The object either fell under a sudden collapse inside an unmarked speleological zone or became the object of a pre-calculated criminal attack. The expert materials attached to the report contain the results of a forensic examination of high-tech optical images of the parking lot before the evacuation of Olivia's vehicle. Spectral analysis confirms that on the inner sticky side of the rubber seal of the rear door glass of the car, a fresh fingerprint of an outside person was recorded, left at the moment of forced locking of the door lock from the outside during the first week of the search operation. Summer 2004 year. A planned inspection of the hard-to-reach rocky sector 8 miles from the pass trail changes the course of the closed proceedings. Rangers Leo and Anna are checking a remote square, completely excluded from tourist routes due to the danger of landslides. The reserve maps mark this section as a blind canyon with sheer granite walls. The search parties of the year 2000 did not survey this sector due to the solid ice cover during the frosts. During the inspection of the rocky ledges, the Rangers record a hidden void under a deep stone overhang. The beam of Anna's flashlight picks out from the semi-darkness the silhouette of a human figure. Official medical evacuation protocols will record the condition of the woman found as critical. The subject was sitting on a dirty stone, her body wrapped in a torn stormtrooper's coat, and her body mass index was on the verge of complete biological failure of the body. The patrolman's breathing stops, their heart rate jumps, and their fingers are hit by a large, uncontrolled tremor from an adrenaline rush. The primary identification breaks a 3-year silence in the sheriff's archives. Before the patrolman is a live Olivia Clark. The physiological parameters of the rescued prove a long stay in the zone of extreme pressure. Clark's gaze is absolutely glassy, focusing on one point. Her pupils weakly react to light, and her muscles are numb from hypothermia. As Leo attempts to get closer to check her pulse, the woman's body is racked by a panicked convulsion. Her breathing turns into acute dyspnea, and a dull, staccato rattle is emitted from her larynx. On the granite boulder above her resting place, the main anomalous evidence of this chapter is discovered. Olivia used a sharp rock shard to mark time on the stone. Patrolmen record over 400 clear parallel lines on the wall. According to the conclusion of the forensic medical examination, each mark meant a week of autonomous stay in the mountains. Clark methodically recorded the passage of time in conditions of isolation until severe cognitive exhaustion destroyed the mental functions of the brain, forcing her to completely lose count of real years. The forensic laboratory begins to record the parameters of the parking lot. On the audio recording of internal operational negotiations, a detective is heard pointing out the technical impossibility of autonomous survival in this sector. Within a radius of 3 miles, there are no sources of drinking water or vegetation in the concrete. Laboratory analysis of the tissue structure of Olivia's torn storm jacket reveals microparticles of industrial lubricant and traces of a chemical reagent used to preserve metal structures. The investigators' protocol of inspection of things records the seizure of hidden objects next to the wall. Under a layer of debris, Hannah discovers a metal army container with signs of recent thermal impact. Inside the box were empty blisters of psychotropic substances and a portable digital audio recorder with closed-type headphones. An examination of the technical condition of the device shows that it is in the mode of active reproduction of audio files, and the battery capacity is fully filled, which excludes the long stay of the device in the cold without recharging. When Leo raises the audio recorder for hermetic packaging, the final break is found on the wet sand near the entrance under the awning. A fresh, deep impression of the sole of a heavy army boot of the tactical type, left in the ground no more than 15 minutes before the appearance of the patrol unit, when Olivia Clark was already in a state of complete catatonia. An evacuation helicopter delivers Olivia Clark to the intensive care unit of the district hospital. The next team of doctors records extreme physical exhaustion, deep muscle atrophy, and outdated fractures of the tibia from falls on stones. Regional Detective Harris immediately takes over the leadership of the investigative group and seizes a massive amount of medical records. The main procedural obstacle to the investigation becomes the mental status of the rescued person. A forensic psychiatrist records a severe dissociative stupor in the conclusion. Clark makes no sound, her gaze frozen on a single point, and her facial muscles completely paralyzed. Her mind has completely blocked access to memories, protecting itself from the shock she has experienced. When Harris tries to approach the bed, the girl has a panic spasm. Acute shortness of breath occurs, and medical monitors record a jump in heart rate to 160 beats per minute. The vector of investigative actions changes sharply after receiving the first toxicological report. Laboratory analysis of Olivia's blood reveals a critical concentration of the sedative drug flunitrazepam. The examination proves that this heavy chemical was administered intramuscularly regularly over the past few weeks, completely destroying the version of her autonomous 3-year survival in the canyon. Harris launches an emergency check of closed supply channels of the substance through the state pharmaceutical register. The operational report records only 3 legal purchases of this drug in the state for the current year, 2 of which belong to a private psychiatric clinic in the suburbs. The detective initiates an immediate comparison of fresh dental shots of Clark's jaw with her own archival card from 2001. The official conclusion of the forensic medical expert breaks the primary alibi of the case. 2 months ago, the patient underwent surgical treatment of root canals using the latest type of photopolymers that appeared on the world market only in the first half of 2004 year. The unknown person kept the girl in isolation and provided her with professional medical care directly during the conduct of official search operations. The investigators' protocol for examining the body records an additional entry. A fresh injection mark was found on Clark's left forearm, left no more than 6 hours before her discovery by the patrol. Operatives seize information carriers from the cameras of the hospital perimeter surveillance. Video recording of camera number 6 registers a radical plot twist. 1 hour before the helicopter's landing, a dark SUV without license plates stops near the reception room, after which the driver in tactical camouflage throws a dense package into the trash can. Searching the trash can gives the operational group a direct lead. Inside the package is the original copy of Olivia Clark's 2001 architectural thesis project. On the first page of the document, the home address of Regional Detective Harris is clearly written in fresh human blood. The visitor's log at the county hospital's ICU records Thomas Clark's daily visits for 90 days after the girl's evacuation. The father lays out on the medical table the items retrieved by law enforcement from the archive storage of the year 2001. Olivia's wristwatch, her student ID, yellowed paper sketches, and photo cards of past life. The patient completely ignores the items, maintaining absolute physical immobility. Detective Harris unfolds the audio system to conduct an interrogation of the subject, According to the transcript of the investigative action, Harris introduces a verbal marker, asking Clark about the reasons for the 3-year stay inside the canyon. As soon as the question about the circumstances of being on the pass trail sounds, the surveillance cameras record an instantaneous psychophysiological collapse of the girl. The muscles of her neck completely petrify. There is a numbness of the limbs, and her fingers begin to twitch uncontrollably. Acute dyspnea is noted. Breathing becomes shallow, and medical monitors record a heart rate spike to 170 beats per minute. Harris immediately shuts down the device and exits the box to prevent cardiac arrest in Clark. The Medical Post-Journal notes a break in the patient's cognitive dynamics during the night watch. The attending anesthesiologist, while checking reflexes, was discussing the weather report with the assistant, mentioning gusts on the pass. The audio recording of the security system recorded Clark's instantaneous physical reaction to these words. She sharply strains the forearm muscles, throws her left hand forward, and squeezes the doctor's fist with maximum force. The girl's skin is covered with sticky cold sweat. A frozen, glassy gaze is fixed on the man's face, and a violent spasm occurs in her throat, blocking the swallowing reflex. The audio recorder clearly transmits how Olivia overcomes the vocal block and utters her first word: cold. Exactly 24 hours later, Olivia Clark's full language function is recorded. The transcript of the internal hospital recorder confirms her first self-initiated contact with her father. With a voice damaged by prolonged silence, Clark utters her first conscious question: "How many years have I lost?" At the same moment, the operating team receives her written consent to undergo a procedure for pharmacological unlocking of the subconscious. Clark himself, despite the trembling of his hand, signs the strict reporting form, allowing the court psychiatrists to apply psychostimulants to destroy the dissociative brain block. Harris, together with the court psychiatrists, unfolds the procedure of regressive analysis in the hospital laboratory under continuous video recording. After the introduction of a minimal dose of the drug, Clark plunges into a state of trance. Her breathing becomes rare. The amplitude of the chest falls, the jaw muscles completely petrify, and the dilated pupils stop reacting to light. The transcript of the audio recording records her monotonous, icy voice, devoid of intonation fluctuations, which begins to reproduce real memories of the year 2001. Olivia Clark describes in detail not the slopes of the Rocky Mountains, not the blizzard, but the trail of the pass. On the audio recording, her words are clearly heard about how she spent the first 24 months inside an underground casemate, where her own architectural tools, stolen from her private office 6 months before her disappearance, lay on an iron table. Clark claims that every 24 hours, an unknown man in tactical camouflage forced her, under threat of physical destruction, to incrementally design the internal system of underground communication and ventilation shafts for a private residential house that, by all engineering parameters and geographic coordinates, belonged directly to Father Thomas. Detective Harris nullifies the previous version of the investigation based on the testimony obtained through regressive analysis and issues an official warrant for an urgent search of Thomas Clark's private property. SWAT team operatives from the state police block the exits from the Clark family estate in the suburbs of Boulder. A cross-analysis of the building's blueprints reveals a complete match of the engineering lines with the drawings Olivia described in a medicated trance. The tactical team's video cameras record an instantaneous psychophysiological breakdown of the father. Thomas suffers a severe spasm of the larynx. Breathing becomes shallow, turning into acute shortness of breath, and his fingers begin to experience a large, uncontrolled tremor, completely blocking his ability to hold a pen to sign the familiarization protocol with documents. The storm group moves to the basement of the house. Using ultrasound georadars, the technical service detects a void under the heavy oak floorboards of the pantry. The removal of the wooden covering reveals a concealed steel hatch with a digital lock of the Echo series, the marking of which is identical to the parameters of the Army container previously removed by the patrolman under the stone canopy. According to the operational report, during the disclosure of the locking mechanism using a heavy hydraulic tool, Thomas suffers a repeated physiological collapse. The man completely loses his balance, settles on his knees, his jaw muscles petrify, his skin is instantly covered with sticky cold sweat, and his frozen glass gaze is fixed on the dark opening. The security system's audio recording captures his dull, intermittent hissing as he tries to utter words of protection. Investigators descend the iron rungs into a 4x4-meter reinforced concrete underground bunker. The interior space of the casemate is equipped with an autonomous forced ventilation system, the architecture of which copies Olivia's diploma project of the year 2001. On the iron work table, forensic experts seize used surgical scalpels, medical infusion systems, and empty ampules of the sedative drug flunitrazepam. A radical breakthrough in the investigation unfolds during the discovery of a wall-mounted safe. The operatives pull out a leather folder containing paper dossiers that hold daily movement schedules, bank card numbers, and complete log files of Thomas Clark's satellite tracker for the past 36 months. An unknown perpetrator had been using the underground structure beneath the house to conduct around-the-clock secret surveillance of the family for years. Forensic examination of the biological particles from the iron chair of the bunker yields a concrete result that completely changes the perception of the criminal case. Molecular analysis of the extracted hair samples proves that they do not belong to Olivia Clark, but to private medical caregiver Elena White, whom Thomas personally hired 3 weeks ago to provide care for his daughter in the hospital. On the audio recording of the internal conversations of the headquarters, Detective Harris states that the original timeline and the alibis of the suspects are completely destroyed. Olivia was not held in this basement for 3 years in a row. She was moved here just a few weeks ago, directly from the hospital room, while the official investigation considered her condition stable. The investigative team retrieves a hidden portable computer from under the casemate's work table, connected to an autonomous satellite communication channel via an encrypted protocol. The technical analyst launches the file decryption system. On the digital monitor of the device, a live video broadcast in real time is launched directly from the isolated resuscitation box of the district hospital, where Olivia Clark is currently located. The camera spotlight captures the silhouette of Elena White holding a syringe with a chemical reagent near the patient's catheter, while a system text notification from a remote user appears on the computer screen about the activation of a forced remote shutdown of all connected life support medical devices of the girl from the outside. The forensic laboratory completes the molecular analysis of the hunting knife seized during the search. The official protocol of the forensic medical examination records the removal of epithelial particles and microscopic bloodstains from the grooves of the metal blade. The constructed deoxyribonucleic acid profile belongs to an unidentified male person. An automatic launch of a comparative analysis through national criminal investigation databases yields a full refusal result. The given individual is completely absent from the law enforcement agency's records, which proves his absolute biological isolation from society throughout his life. A group of forensic linguists and criminal psychologists begins a step-by-step analysis of the deciphered text of the seized notebook. A chemical analysis of the microparticles of dust from the book's spine confirms the presence of mineral salts, characteristic exclusively of the deep limestone caves of the Rocky Mountains. The notes suggest that the author lived alone in abandoned caves and karst formations for years long before Olivia Clark's disappearance in 2001. The analytical department's report records specific psychopathic language patterns and destructive speech structure of the author. All records are kept using outdated syntactic structures, indicating a complete lack of verbal communication with other people. The records open the gloomy logic of an unknown kidnapper hermit, who is designated in the case materials under the working track of the Watcher. The author classifies urban civilization, industrial centers, and modern society as destructive chaos and a source of moral decay. Instead, the harsh mountains, sheer granite cliffs, and avalanche corridors figure in the diary text as the only space of ideal order, natural purity, and sacred calm. According to the analysis of the diary entries, the keeper perceived Olivia Clark not as an object of violence or a source of financial ransom, but as his living engineering project, which needed to be forcibly mothballed and securely hidden from the outside world. Criminal profilers record in the report signs of a severe form of mystical delirium and progressive megalomania of the author. The diary text contains detailed mathematical calculations of caloric intake, where the perpetrator justifies the deliberate restriction of Clark's diet to an absolute minimum of canned goods and measured water. The physical exhaustion had a strict technical task: to provoke the complete atrophy of the muscles of the lower extremities and the destruction of motor functions. The girl was too weak to overcome the steep rocky passes on her own, to pass 8 miles of the danger zone and reach the marked tourist trails. The perpetrator himself, on the pages of the notebook, sincerely declares that he is saving the architect from the mud of society. During the familiarization with the materials of the linguistic analysis of the notebook, Olivia's father, Thomas, has a severe physiological breakdown. A man is seized by a sudden convulsive spasm of the vocal cords. Breathing becomes intermittent, provoking acute shortness of breath, and the fingers of his hands holding the folders strike a large, uncontrolled tremor. His gaze freezes in one spot on the diary page, where the keeper detailed the process of secretly studying Olivia's architectural works 12 months before her capture on the pass trail. The man completely loses the ability to perceive the surrounding verbal commands of the officers, being in a state of short-term stupor. The forensic team conducts an additional physical examination of the paper structure of the notebook itself. Technical experts under directed infrared lenses detect a hidden engineering detail on the back of the leather cover of the book. Between the layers of compressed material, an ultra-thin microchip of an autonomous satellite transmitter is discovered, which continuously broadcasts the journal's geolocation directly to the private mobile terminal of the regional detective Harris himself. The technical report of the forensic laboratory on the presence of a satellite microchip is immediately transmitted to the Department of Internal Investigations. Operatives of the special unit block the office of Regional Detective Harris, seize his personal communication means, and isolate the officer from the management of the investigative group. The investigative protocol of the internal audit records Harris's instantaneous physiological reaction to the accusation of coordinating the actions of the perpetrator. The detective's facial muscles completely froze. Breathing became superficial, turning into acute shortness of breath, and a sticky cold sweat appeared on his forehead. The man froze, focusing a glassy gaze on the seized mobile terminal, and the fingers of his hands began to beat a large, uncontrolled tremor, making it impossible to attempt to make a record in the explanation form. The investigators begin a step-by-step analysis of the satellite tracking of Harris's personal car over the past 36 months. The results of the check completely destroy his official alibi. The onboard computer's log files show that the detective regularly was within a 2-mile radius of the abandoned limestone caves of the Rocky Mountains on the very days the abductor under the handle watcher was making entries into his notebook. Audio recordings of the 2001 Select Committee hearings confirm that Harris personally gave the order to abort the first rescue operation a week after Olivia Clark's disappearance, citing avalanche danger, although technical reports from the weather stations recorded stable weather conditions. A search of Harris's private safe in his office brings a new plot twist. The task force retrieves a hidden digital camera from the year 2000 and several encrypted optical discs. The video footage, decoded by the technical department, contains hundreds of photos of Olivia Clark, taken through a telephoto lens 6 months before her abduction. The footage was shot from the window of a car that, by all registration numbers, belonged directly to the police department. The camera also captured the process of transferring the original drawings from Olivia's architectural office to an unidentified person in tactical camouflage. On the audio recording of Harris's interrogation, his monotone voice is heard, where he denies involvement, claiming that his terminal was hacked by a third party. The vector of the investigation is turned upside down after an urgent message from the forensic laboratory. Experts are completing a repeat molecular analysis of the skin folder, with paper files found in the underground bunker beneath Thomas Clark's house. The DNA test results on the inside pages of the documents give a concrete result. The papers have biological traces of Olivia Clark herself, of a new type, left just 48 hours ago. This fact completely eliminates the theory of her being in a dissociative state inside the county hospital room for the last 3 months. The girl voluntarily and consciously worked with the perpetrator in the basement of her own father, while the police were searching for her in the canyon. The technical service is carrying out the forced cloning of the satellite communication channel of the seized computer from the bunker. On the analyst's monitor, an encrypted audio file flashes, sent to Harris's terminal 5 minutes ago. On the digital recording, the icy, calm voice of Olivia Clark herself is clearly audible, completely devoid of any signs of mental disorder or exhaustion. According to the transcript of the audio message, the girl step by step instructs the caregiver Elena White to administer a lethal dose of flunitrazepam to her own father, Thomas Clark, and the final seconds of the log record, the forced activation of the system for complete blocking of all external doors of the estate, locking the operational group inside the underground casemate.